Hey, welcome to the One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute with your host, the alchemist of Indiana's Black Forest, Alan Bishop. Hey, this channel is all about home distilling and legal distilling. If you've got questions, reach out to us in the comments below, social media, or via bishopshomegrown@gmail.com. And don't forget to check out thealchemistcabinet.com. Hey, what's up, guys? A little bit of a process video here today. So, good buddy of mine this past year from up in northern Indiana sent me some sugarcane that actually grows here in Indiana. Now, it doesn't mature fully in Indiana, but it gets pretty damn close. And from what I hear, it's got a pretty good yield off of it. So I've got 8 or 9 plants out here in the garden that I'll show you in a little bit. And I know we're getting close to our first frost date, so it's time to get that out of the garden. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut that with, obviously, a corn knife. I've got my great-grandfather's corn knife. You know, part of my spirituality, it's important to use ancestral tools. I've had this corn knife made out of an old bush hog blade for years and years now. Before that, my grandpa carried it with him for years and years, and my great-grandpa always used it to harvest his corn and his sorghum with. So we have bought a sugarcane crusher. We're going to see how that works. There's a yellow jacket trying to sting the shit out of me right now. But I've got it all oiled up and everything. Got it sitting here on this little picnic table that's actually Penny's that I'm borrowing from her for a day. Turn the camera around, show you what we got going. So there's our sugarcane crusher. Over here is our corn knife. And out there in the garden's our sugarcane. Can't really see it from here, but I'll take you out there and show it to you. We're going to crush this. I'm not going to boil it down into sugar or anything like that, or even a syrup. I'm going to see roughly what the sweetness of it is. I probably won't even really check the bricks. We're just going to see, you know, what it tastes like, how much sweetness is perceivable there, etc. If we need to, we can boil it down some. I've got a good little copper pot I can cook with over here. And then that is probably going to go in with some malted corn and some unmalted corn that we grew in the garden this year, what we call Bishop Farm corn, which is a new Gretz. And maybe some sweet corn, because I have a bunch of cans of expired sweet corn I need to do something with. We're going to see what we get out of it. So went ahead and yanked the last of this season's peppers too. Various different hot peppers down there. There's a lot of green peppers still on. A shit ton of Tabascos. Maybe I'll have time to harvest the Tabascos still yet. We'll see. Probably be a through the week thing. Today's a busy day, but here's the sugarcane. So you can see the wind's been kind of hard on it. We had the remnants of that hurricane come through, and that sort of blew it around a little bit. This did not grow in ideal conditions because I had my Bishop Farm corn right here behind this peach tree, this Flinger peach. And so, of course, this didn't get a lot of sun early on. But it performed stellar, and once the corn was done, I cut the corn out, it really took off. And so part of the processing of this is once you hit September, you start pulling the brown leaves off. And you got to be careful because they are razor sharp. They will cut you bad. But that keeps, you know, the sugar content high because it's not feeding these leaves that are half dying. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through here and we're going to take this corn knife of my great-grandfather's, cut these off at the ground. I'm going to take the bottom few nodes, the ones that haven't sprouted out like crazy yet. Those are going to get potted into potting mix. That's going to go down in my cellar, and those are going to get over winter to be planted again next year. Now my hope for next year is I can have about 20, maybe 30 plants if I'm real lucky here. We'll see how it goes, and really have a good patch of sugarcane, and then keep upping that every year to where eventually I could have enough of this to actually be able to make some, you know, some rum-inspired Indiana spirits. We probably wouldn't call it rum, but rum-inspired, obviously. So John Schreck sent me these from up in northern Indiana. He's grown them for years. He got it from a friend in California. It is a Mexican heirloom variety that is mostly used for chewing or for syrup processing. He did not know the name of it, but David Shields recently chimed in on a post that John put up, and he said that this is likely to be green home sugarcane. So I wasn't aware there were 3 different kinds of sugarcane, but there are. There are crystal sugarcanes, which are like your industrial sugarcanes used for sugar production. There are syrup sugarcanes used to make something kind of like sorghum or even maple syrup. And then there are chewing varieties or juicing varieties. So they make juice out of these, or you chew the actual cane itself. But a lot of the chewing varieties can also be used as syrup varieties. And we know that this one does make good syrup because John has done that in the past. So when I have more of this, I will be doing that in the future to put away for the family too. But I'm going to get set up and start getting these cut. So. My great-grandfather was a blacksmith down in Oneida, Kentucky, and make use of what you got. So he had an old bush hog blade, excellent corn knife. Now, it's a shame I'm not able to let these grow any longer. I don't have longer season. So, you know, they'll send up new shoots, and that's how the patch expands. I only had one this year that really tried to do it. This one over here has got a couple small ones on it. But I did notice just now when I was moving some of that mulch back, some of these guys started to throw up some new shoots. So see, if I had a little longer season, I'd have some more sugarcane. But it is what it is. So what I'm gonna do now is get rid of the tops, get rid of the leaves, any of that stuff. I'm gonna cut this into like 2.5 foot sections, get it in my little radio flyer wagon over there that we bought for Penny, my mom and dad bought for Penny years ago, that she's pretty much done playing with now. Finished cutting these too, I just wanted to show those to you. And haul that back over there to the press. All right, so we got it hauled back up here to the house, and I'm gonna go ahead and select the buds I want to keep for replanting. So you do that from the bottom of the plant basically, but I'll show you the little haul that I got. It ain't a whole lot, but we're gonna see what it does. So this here in the wagon, big one in my hand, one over there. Me and Kim just cut some and debarked it with our knives there to chew on it, and man, it's sweet, it's good, it's really interesting. It's definitely more flavorful than what you would think, obviously. I think to me it's got a better flavor than what sorghum does, so I'm pretty excited about it. But what we're going to do now is, so when you select your buds, you do it off of the bottom, and so you'll cut between these internodes. You can see where that bud is there. I'm going to come up right about the middle of this and cut that, probably do the third one there, we'll see, maybe not. We're going to do 2 or 3 off of each plant so that we have plenty that we can propagate off of. All right, so I think I've got the sugar mill figured out, and it's actually doing a really good job, especially for what it cost. It was only a couple $100 off Amazon, but it is a good quality piece of equipment. So now that I've got that figured out, what I figured I'd do is a while ago I was telling you guys about starting your seed cane. So most sugar cane is started off with either seed or seed cane. Now obviously clonal populations are all seed cane, new varieties are from seed. Some I'm sure are open pollinated. I don't know enough about sugar cane to be able to tell you one way or the other, but I told you about cutting in between the internodes. This is your bud here. So what we're doing right now is we're processing some of these and cutting the seed cane for next year. I know I'm losing some yield. It's okay, I'm not worried about yield this year. We're just going to ferment this as an experiment. So I want as many of these buds as what I can get that are decent to have a decent plantation next year to get a bigger yield and keep doing that year over year. So we're just going to take our corn knife and cut this in a second. This seed cane like this will actually get planted horizontally in pots a couple inches deep. It'll go down in the cellar and it'll overwinter in the cellar, and we'll plant it next spring after frost. So I'm just going to take this one off of here because, as you can see, this one's already budded out really far. I don't really want them to be making plants up above the ground all winter and having to keep a light on them all winter. So I'm trying to avoid that and just take these dormant buds right now. Just like that, that's your seed cane for your next crop. So the other thing you have to do is, before you start this mill, I'm gonna go ahead and knock these off. Now if we were juicing it, we'd knock these off and we'd fill it, like I said, get all this leaf material off, etc. But since we're just juicing it to use for fermentation like rum agricole, what we're going to do, because this is a fairly small entranceway and fairly tight rollers, is we're going to just cut an angle on the end of the cane, a little more than that, to get it started. And you can see how juicy that is when you taste it. It's very sweet. It's kind of like, it tastes like sweet tea to me. So now this thing is made to bolt down to a table, but I don't have a permanent place to keep it right now, or a building to put it in. So you're probably going to watch me struggle with both adjusting this and trying to hold the thing in place, but it's a pretty neat machine, to be honest with you. There we go. She started. I can feel it's fairly loose, so I'm going to tighten the adjustment down a little bit here. Still a little loose. It'll get tighter as it goes. We don't want it super tight. We just want it efficient. You able to see the juice coming out the bottom? See there, it doesn't want to move.
You can also see it pushing the juice up the edge of the stalk too.
Yeah. Now every bit of this is useful stuff, the juice, but also this spent cane. We'll talk about that in a second too, because I can imagine a couple uses for it, and I know one traditional use for it. It does take a little effort to roll this thing around. You could add a motor to it. It does have a flywheel on it, and once we start doing more, I will. But for this year as an experiment, this is fine. So I'm probably not saying this word right, but it's bagasse or bagasse, I'm not sure, one of the two, but it's what's left of what you pressed. If you open it up, you can see it's dry. We pushed everything out of that fiber. So now traditionally, much like tobacco farmers, they take this, put it back on the field and burn it. But the other thing that they would do is dry this down, especially small rum producers, and then use this to actually fire their stills with. So you have your fuel and your ethanol all from one crop. Another thing I was thinking was, there's a lot of cellulose here, thick, tough cellulose on the outside, but this pulpy stuff on the inside, two things. I'm betting if you dry that down, that'd be one hell of a fire starter. But the other thing is, I think if you compost this, you could have a nice little soil amendment for potting mixes, is my guess. So we're going to save all of it. We won't have much, but it's worth saving, I think. Now, the other cool thing about this little sugarcane mill is this little contraption here. So has a built-in filter that also captures your juice. And so we just pull that out and set our pot up here and open the valve. Collect our juice. And it's not real high sugar, I can tell you that right now. I think because I had it planted next to that corn, it struggled early in the year, and so it's probably a little lower bricks than what it should be. We probably could have let it go. I know John Shirk normally doesn't harvest his, doesn't normally harvest his until right before the first frost, but with working at the distillery and being over an hour and 10 minutes away, having If You Have Ghosts, working on the almanac and all that stuff, this is the week before our first average frost date. I just need to get it done so I don't destroy it. So there you go. So we're going to finish processing all this and pot the rest of it up, and then we'll start a fermentation. Alright, so we're done pressing the sugar cane. We put the waste product, the bagasse, however you say that. Somebody's going to correct me on it, guaranteed. We'll put that somewhere where it can dry down. We're going to use that for wood starter, etc. This winter here at the house, again, nothing here goes to waste if we can help it. I didn't get a huge yield, and it's not real high bricks. It's only probably around maybe 15 bricks or so. So I am going to have to add sugar to this to get fermentation going, but the point here is to use what we have on the farm as much as possible. And this is part of an overarching thing that I've had on my mind for years that I'm going to really go into now, which is how primitive can you take distillation? So I've been playing around with wild ferments, long ferments, things of that nature. There's other stuff coming. Starting to learn how to process raw clay. Starting to learn how to fire clay. You can see where this is going. If one could rise a still up from the earth itself, that's pretty impressive magic. But show you the little pot here. Got about 2 gallons in there. So one thing I didn't show you guys is that on the sugarcane itself there was a white film, and that white film is actually the yeast that's growing on the sugarcane. Not pitching any yeast in this. Over here we've got several pounds, about 3.5 gallons probably, of Bishop Farm corn. This is a new land race that I'm working on for our farm, as well as for the distillery at Old Homestead. But we're going to take this, add it to this, top it up with a little bit of water. I've only got just a little bit of sugar on hand right now. I might tip that in there. I'm going to let the yeast get started in all this. This is just going to be a cold mash. Let that yeast get started, in a day or two once it gets started, then I'll split it up and make about probably 10 to 15 gallons total of beer from it. So it's going to be very primitive. No yeast being added, just what's on that sugar cane, whatever's on that corn and that malt corn that's in that bucket. That's it. Long fermentation, let it take its time, let it do what it needs to do. And this is something I want to do on a larger scale, right? Especially if I can get that bricks up quite a bit in the sugar cane, which I think I can by putting it in better planting conditions next year and letting it go until absolutely up to the very first frost. But I want to play around with, I'm not really all that interested in making Indiana rum because I don't think anybody cares, but if I can take Indiana sugarcane and use that as a sucrose source or fructose source to feed fermentations, there could be something really cool there. Just almost enough to cover the corn over, but not quite, and that's okay. Like I said, This is not about efficiency, this is about experimenting. So I'm going to add water to that and top it up, tip a little sugar in there, let that yeast culture get going. In a few days we'll divide it up. Alright, bucket's full. I added a couple pounds of sugar to it. We're going to cap it off with a lid. Leave it vented though, to where it can breathe, let CO2 out, etc. And we're going to leave this outside, out in the open. Let it do what it does. It's fall, temperatures are up and down all over the place. Makes for fun, dynamic fermentations. All right, set it out in the open. So when that yeast kicks off, I'll give you a little video update. I mentioned wanting to take distillation as primitive as what I can, and that is something I very seriously intend to do. And something I will document here on one piece at a time. I think there's something to that, right? I have the greatest job in the world, and no desire to continue on the path that I was at home in private. It's not needed. I have somewhere to do all those things. But if I can tell people about the art of distillation and help promote it that way, especially as it becomes legalized or deregulated, which it will in time, and I can give them the most basic version of that possible after I've given them a very advanced version, which I've done on this channel now for a couple of years, I think that's a worthwhile pursuit. Alright, so here's our sugarcane nursery. These are all the buds that we cut. I didn't count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. 19 pots. Now the big pots have 2 each in them, so we're close to 25 or so starts. Hopefully those all live and thrive. We can plant those in the garden next year and have a pretty decent harvest.